Hi folks, welcome back to the channel and thank you for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. Today we're having another look at the sort of alternative to the Telford Scale Model World for those of us that are not going, which I think is probably most viewers that are watching this, or certainly at least half I think. Yeah, I think that everybody's got their own views on it. We all want to get back to normal really, don't we, and just get back to how things used to be, but I don't think right now it's necessarily possible. I think that those that do go, I think it might be pleasant because they will find it less crowded, but I think there won't be as many exhibitors there and things like that, so I think it's going to be a bit muted. But we shall see. I hope those that do go to Scale Model will have a great time. I hope success for them. In the meantime, those of us that are not going are probably feeling a bit down again, you know, like last year. Last year we had the good, the bad and the ugly, which is where we had our my personal kits that had been fantastic and ultra recommended, those that were okay, you know, with work you can get by, and those that were just downright horrible. But we'll not do that this year. This year we're just looking at a few things from my own collection, some models you won't have seen before from me. I think you might have seen a racing car, we'll come back to that in a minute, but probably not much of it. But we're going to talk about cars today and the differences of building cars, what's required in terms of the skill levels and skill. It's not so much skill levels, but skill set, I think, the different skills from making things like aircraft or armour. If I'm completely honest with you, I'm not a shipbuilder at all. I don't really have the right sort of space to store ships when they're built, so I've never got into it. But I do really admire some of these ships. I mean, at Telford Scale Model World previously, there's been a whole section of ship builders area that's been put out for display, and some of them are just staggering, especially the water effects that people achieve. And I just think, I don't know how to do that, you know, no idea. So hats off to you gentlemen and ladies that get into that and do those effects and make it so real. And they have, some of them have got real presence and give a real depth of scale, you know, they're quite dramatic, amazing things. But that's not my thing. So I tend to do aircraft mainly, followed by cars second, and then armour very close. They're very similar really. But just imagine that in reverse. I actually believe personally that in terms of all the way we go about it and what's required to achieve a good result, I always think armour is the easiest. I've got to be honest, because there's no canopies. You don't have perfect finishes to achieve. You can get away with a lot of sins on your armour kits, tanks and things like that, and I do. And then in the middle I think you've got aircraft. I think the most difficult thing to model actually is the likes of racing cars, road cars and motorbikes, only because it's different really. It's different. You've got to get the paint finishes absolutely spot on. And I'll show you 3 different approaches to that. None of them are spot on or perfect, by the way, but 3 different approaches with 3 different types of result. You might find it quite interesting. So, where do we begin then? I'm going to show my age a little bit here, I think, because we're going to go back to the dawn of time. The Lost Ark. Oh, no, mustn't do any of that Indiana Jones stuff. Sorry, wash my mouth out. Let's just say a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I built the oldest kit that I've got in my cabinet, my collection. I'm not one that kept them from his childhood, but I did keep 1 or 2 that were, I thought, exceptional at the time, to me. You won't think they're exceptional, you'll probably think they're laughable. But I really, at the time, given the skills I had, I thought they were really good, and I'm really proud of them at the time. So let's just get into it. And what I'm going to do is, for clarity, I'm going to move 1 or 2 things out. I'm going to talk about my sort of journey, if you like, with models, and we're going to be very, very gentle here. Let's just get that out of, so it's almost out of shot. Probably if I put it out of shot too much, it's going to be blocking our light. So I'm going to move it aside where it's going to be safe, over here. It says when it shifts on the turntable. Don't do that, don't do that. You be a good car. That's it. Now then, I'm back again. One of the first things I ever built was the, you just saw the Formula 1 car, we'll come back to that in detail later. Have a look at these 2 photographs, I'll zoom you in. We have got here This is the Ferrari 312 T4 from Tamiya. Now you can still get this today. A lovely, lovely kit, I've got to be honest. Now I built this, wait for it, this is going to have been built before some of my viewers and subscribers are probably born. Are you ready? Okay, so it came, I think it actually came out, the car itself was raced in Formula 1 in 1979. And it's the car that won the World Championship for Jody Scheckter. But I always thought Scheckter was a bit, he played the percentages, a good driver, very clever guy. But he won the title because he was quite intelligent in the way he went about it. But he wasn't so spectacular to watch. But his teammate, Gilles Villeneuve, the French-Canadian driver from Quebec, I think he was a real loony and very spectacular to watch, you know. And the Italians loved him. I think everybody loved him. He almost bordered on the dangerous at times. And this is the car, this model, is of the car that he drove in the 79 season and was runner-up and he did play the teammate role. He was very loyal to the team. Scheckter got ahead and then he supported Scheckter. But in several races there were spectacular accidents, and one of the most spectacular was the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort in I think it was August 79, and he went he went off. He had two spins, I think, and in one spin he went off backwards at the first bend, Tarzan, and basically ripped his wheel off. He damaged the wheel, and the suspension was damaged, and he punctured the tyre. And he reversed. You can see this on YouTube if you just put in Villeneuve Dutch Grand Prix Zandvoort or Villeneuve crashes, you'll see it. And he reverses right back onto the track into the oncoming traffic, and then drives the entire circuit, because it's almost just at the exit of the pit lane where he's crashed. So he drives the entire lap with this wheel, this puncture, which then gets very, very extreme. And ultimately the tyre, as he drives around at speed, the tyre comes off and he's driving around on the rim, and then the wheel is hanging off by the time he gets back to the pit lane, and it's very, very spectacular. Anyway, so this, I'm going to zoom you in again. So this is the Tamiya kit, which is a brilliant kit. Very, very strongly recommend this one to you. Now I built this in 1980-81, I think it was, late 80, early 81. And I actually won an award with this. Got the second photograph here. Here we are. This is in my mum's cabinet at home, pride of place. And as you can see, it's a flat 12 engine in this car. It had a limited ground effect, but it was very good compromise between power and ground effects, what made it successful really. And then after this they fell out of form, and in 1980 they fell behind, Ferrari did. But anyway, that was my first big build. Unfortunately the photos don't do it any justice, because inside it's got a lot of detail and I painted it up nicely. I didn't, did I or didn't I? Yes, I think I did spray paint the car. With these Tamiya kits, especially when I was a bit younger then, a lot younger, it's always a dilemma. Do you spray it or do you leave it bare plastic? Now normally you'd say, oh no, bare plastic looks like a toy, you know. But actually on these Tamiya kits, as you'll see with the other Ferrari later, the plastic is so good that you can kind of get away with it. And I'm struggling to remember if I painted this or not. I don't think I did, because it's got a lot of decals on it. I don't think I painted it, I'm trying to remember. And then I sort of felt guilty about it. So I moved on to another kit. So this would also be about about the same time, 1980, autumn 1980 I think. And this is the kit that I've built. It is the Porsche 928S. I'll zoom in a bit for this. We'll move the one in the background, it's going to distract, I think. Perhaps we make him in pride of place over here for you. How's that? So it's the Porsche 928S. The Porsche 928 came out in '79 and won the Car of the Year award, would you believe? And it had a number of innovations in the vehicle. It had these completely built-in, first time a car had totally built-in polyurethane section bumpers with like a crash structure. It had got, I think it had anti-lock brakes as well, if memory serves. And it had this, again, this same sort of crash structure all in one at the rear, as you can probably see there. Very, very nice kit as well from Tamiya, as they always are. And this is actually motorised. I won't take it apart, but just trust me, on the inside we have actually got, it's got a motor, and you just got an on-off switch, so you can't steer it. It's not remote control. You just switch it on, and it runs around and around in circles, and and there we go. But this is something from my. This is the oldest kit I have currently. So this is from the very back collection, 1980. Many of you weren't born. So all things considered, it's not the greatest paint job. Now I did spray it though. This is my first ever attempt at spray painting, and I've got to be honest. I think that considering it was my first attempt, complete amateur. Yes, if you look carefully, you can see one or two flecks of dust because I didn't have a very dust-free environment at all. Not sure if you can make it out, but there is dust here and there. You'll see it in the paint. If I just bring this up. Can you just see the flecks? Occasionally you'll see the little flecks of dust that I got in there. There's one over on the left side of the bonnet. There. Here. See it? There. Yeah, yeah. And this is it's one of the hazards of spray painting a kit when you're very young, in a non-dust free environment, I'm afraid. But all things considered, that came out really well. I was only a wee lad, you know. I won't say exactly how I was, but I was a teenager, young teen. So, there we have it. So that's my first attempt at doing a car, along with the Formula 1 car. The Formula 1 car, I mentioned, it won an award, the Villeneuve Ferrari number 12. I entered it into a model show later, about 83, a couple of years later. And it won the best model in the show. It was at like a local show in Cheshire at a village fair, big village though, in town really. Again, I won't name names or places, but it was like an agricultural and craft fair, big show, many thousands of people, and it won the best model. And there were some other good models as well. So I was very proud of it, and that was my first Formula 1 car. I think it probably was. I can't think of one before it. I did do PK's Brabham as well around that time, same year. But I think that was the first. I was very keen to build it because it was, the details sort of sucked me in and all that stuff. Anyway, so there we are. Unfortunately I can only show you that because goodness knows why I ended up shooting it with my air rifle. I must have got fed up with it. I have a feeling I dropped it and smashed it up a bit, and then thought, because you're that age, you think, oh, I'm not going to buy it, shoot it with the air rifle. Why? Oh my god. When I think back now, I just wish I could get it back. Because it was a lovely kit, it was a nice model, and it looked the part, you know. So, it's a recommended kit anyway. So that's the Ferrari 312 T4 from 1980. Porsche 928S from about the same year. Yeah, so, let's move that aside. So that's the genesis of my car kits. Let's have a look at this Formula 1 car then that we have got, and we'll talk about it in more detail. We're going to jump forward in time, not that much at all. Here we go. Now the sharp-eyed amongst you may recognise this car. It is the car that was driven by Nigel Mansell, the British driver. Nigel Mansell, for those of you that don't know, he was this guy that had this big bushy moustache, very tall, quite a bulky sort of muscular guy. He came to prominence when he was, he sort of became the protege of Colin Chapman at the Lotus Formula 1 team, and he drove for Lotus from mid-1980 onwards. And Chapman, of course, died not long after that, in December 82. So, and they didn't have a very competitive car at the time, so they didn't have any great success to them. There was also this debacle I've talked about. If you go look in the back catalogue, you can see about the Lotus 88. A lot of problems around that in 1981. So it wasn't a very happy time at Lotus, unfortunately, and the stress of this, they say, led to Chapman's death of a heart attack. But anyway, Mansell then continued driving for the team for 4 more years. And then in 85 he left to join, at the start of the 85 season he joined the Williams team with Keke Rosberg, Nico Rosberg's father. And he won his first Grand Prix. In fact, he won 2 Grand Prix. He won the European Grand Prix at Brands Hatch in the autumn. I think it was October, about this time of the year. And then he He went on, I think, a week or 2 weeks later, he won the South African Grand Prix as well. So he had great success. And in '86 he became a proper contender. But he had a big rivalry with his teammate in '86, Nelson Piquet, who replaced Rosberg, who went to McLaren. And they had a bit of a falling out. It's kind of legend, you know, they didn't hit it off at all. Piquet was a bit of a playboy, rich kid, and Mansell was this lad from Birmingham who'd come up the hard way, mortgaged his house to go racing and all that stuff. And Piquet insulted Mansell's wife and all sorts of things went on. It was quite personal. And it's no wonder that their on-track battles are so fervent, I think is the word. Anyway, Mansell and Piquet continued at Williams, and then unfortunately Williams lost the turbo Honda engine, which was the key to their competitiveness, the biggest key. So Mansell decided that for 1988 he went to talk to Enzo Ferrari, Il Commendatore, the boss. And in fact Ferrari had watched Mansell, and despite him being English and didn't really understand anything he said, he decided that his racing sort of spirit was such that he wanted him to drive for Ferrari. And he was the very last driver that was selected by Enzo Ferrari, so that's quite an accolade. Anyway, he went on to join them in 1989, and against all expectations and all probability and odds, he won the first race in a car that had been so unreliable it had never strung together more than 3 or 4 laps in testing and qualifying and practice, because it had this new paddle shift gearbox which we all take for granted today. Very commonplace today. I drive a humble Honda and even that's got one, so it's become just the norm. But this was the first ever time that this hydraulically operated paddle shift gearbox had been seen. Mansell drove it to victory in the Brazilian Grand Prix at Rio, in a very spectacular and enjoyable race to watch. You should go and watch it if you haven't seen it. Senna and Berger collide at the first corner, knocking Senna out, and Mansell just has Prost for breakfast. You know, the car was very competitive, a very low drag car, great V12 Ferrari engine, and then this 7-speed semi-auto gearbox. But it wasn't very reliable, as I mentioned. You know, it was a bit of a fluke. It managed the first race, but then he didn't have any more success until August when they went to Hungary, and he managed to. The reliability improved a little bit, and at that race it was reliable, and he managed to actually fool Ayrton Senna, who came up against a back marker with Mansell on his tail, and Senna sort of lifted slightly because the back marker moved, and Mansell just went straight across onto the opposite side of the track and overtook them both, and it was a very famous overtaking move. Anyway, that's the background. In 1990, 89 of course, what we just mentioned, that's the year that Prost and Senna had their big falling out, and Prost announced he couldn't work with Senna anymore, and he went off to join Mansell at Ferrari, and Ferrari did a swap for Gerhard Berger, who went over to McLaren. So this is the car that they drove in 1990, and it's considered by many people, in fact I saw a video of this, I think it was by Autosport, it's considered to be the most beautiful Formula 1 car of all time, this one. And you can see why. If you look at the shape of this car, it is a thing of beauty, isn't it? Look at the Coke bottle effect of the body, how it wastes in. And all the other cars at the time were quite bulky. You know, the McLaren was very bulky and wide, especially around this area, ahead of the rear wheels. But not this one. It's almost feminine, the curves on this car. Very, very pretty car. Very low drag. Again, got the same formula, the V12 engine, the semi-automatic gearbox, which they were working to improve the reliability of. Quite a machine. Quite a machine. Anyway, back to the models. So, you may recall, those of you that follow Formula 1 and have done for many, many years like me, basically just to finish the history lesson, Mansell famously went to the British Grand Prix. He started to lose out. He seemed to have a less reliable car, and Prost seemed to be fine. And there was a lot of suspicion that he was not being favoured over Prost. Prost was very known to be very skillful, shall we say, at manoeuvring within the team and the politics internal in the team, and he spoke several languages which Mansell didn't, and he probably worked his way in there, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it did seem odd that Mansell was constantly breaking down and Prost wasn't. So the frustrations were building. Then they got to the British Grand Prix in July. Mansell took a stunning pole position to beat Senna, And then at the race, at the start of the race, they had a titanic battle. Mansell went off into the lead. I think he actually overtook Senna at the end of halfway around the first lap, and that was it. He was gone. And then he started having gearbox problems, and it started shifting gears on its own. And he retired about a third, halfway through the race, at the first bend at Copse, and famously threw his earplugs and his overalls, balaclava, and his gloves into the crowd, and shaking his head, very, very upset. Refused to speak to the journalists on the way down the pit lane, and then announced at the end of the race, which Prost won, because I think Senna had a spin. I think he spun off at the exit of Copse, funnily enough, at the same corner. Prost won the race. Mansell announced he was retiring from Formula 1, but he did win another race that year. He won in Portugal, and they went on to have. It was a very successful car, but just didn't win the title. Senna pipped them because he had a reliable car, and Prost and Mansell kept breaking down. And it's frustrating for them because it was the quickest car. This was the faster car. It was faster than McLaren, but it just couldn't do the miles, you know. Anyway, the Tamiya kit, again Tamiya, and this has actually got some aftermarket decals on because the Tamiya ones don't come with any tobacco branding. It's a beautiful kit, but if you look very closely, this is the one where I cheated a bit and I didn't paint it. So this is built, this kit, in, wait for it, I should have said this, I built this in September 1991, just shortly after it had come out. So it came out about, I think, July 91. I bought it and built it almost immediately. So I tend not to do these days, I tend to leave them 5 or 10 years, you know. But I was so excited by it, and it's a fantastic kit to build, really nice. And I decided at that time I didn't have, especially after the experiences with the Porsche, didn't feel I was going to do it justice by spraying it. So I decided not to, and do you know what, I think it came out just fine. The plastic quality on this is so it's so uniform, and not 100% perfect, but it's close enough. It's close enough. So to those of you that are scared by fancy paint finishes on your bikes or your cars, I would just say to you, choose a really good kit first and foremost, and you don't need to paint it all. You'll see this is all painted, all the vital detail components, everything's painted, but I didn't paint the red. I did do the black, but I didn't do the red because I was frightened of, you know, getting imperfections or hairs or whatever into it. And I think it came out absolutely fine. So let's zoom in and have a really close look. So, put it on the turntable here, as you can see. We're going to take the top off and have a look inside. It's actually got metal steering arms, which is very nice from Tamiya. We have a removable front wing here, complete with these titanium scraping aerodynamic appendages underneath. See that? Pop that over there. We will take the top off very gently. Just turn this, give you the best possible view. There we are. Now then, let's have a look. So you can see you've got quite a lot of cooling and piping, there's wiring, there's a beautiful throttle. Can you see the throttle cable there to the throttle? This is before the fly-by-wire came in, so it's a traditional throttle cable that goes into here and then down to the front. You can actually see the throttle itself just there. Just move it in a bit. Here's your throttle here. You've got the intake trumpets, you've got the cam covers with the Ferrari logo on, and then tricky to show you, but here, this is the hydraulic actuators for the semi-automatic gearbox, which is the key feature of the car, made it so competitive. You also got another couple of interesting things where you have this very unusual, at the time, very unusual suspension system, which is top-mounted shockers, as you can see here, and it's like a pull rod system. with these anti-roll bars here. This is your anti-roll bars. Very, very, and it's a torsion bar, I should say. These are torsion bars. This is anti-roll bar. Very, very unusual. Very advanced layout in 1989, which is when the design came out. And a really, really nice model. Look at the seat belts and the seat in the background. This kit comes with proper suede, realistic suede for the actual seat covering, which is really nice. You've got the Ferrari wheel there. As you can see, turns. Full left lock at the moment. I should turn that anymore. Probably shouldn't. There we go. And if you look carefully behind the wheel, you can actually see the paddles that operate the gears. I'm not quite sure if they're not out of place there, because they should be. I don't think. I think they moved with. They're actually part of the wheel, so they're slightly out of position there. Yeah, might need a bit of adjustment. And of course, it had an electronic readout as well, with the rev counter, etc. It's all there, isn't it? It's quite. Yeah, it's quite a nice kit. I don't know if I can show you the underside, give you an idea of the, very gentle, the under tray at the back. It's got this aerodynamic under tray, and you can see the exhaust exits there. Very, very good aerodynamics on this car, it has to be said. Yeah, so you can actually see, if you look very carefully, you can actually see the FIA scrutineering marks are there as well, the stickers they put on it to show that it's passed scrutineering. Here, just under my finger. So, yes, it's quite an impressive machine. I mean, when I saw this car, I actually went to Silverstone in 1990 and for the weekend, and yeah, it was just, it made the most incredible noise, this V12 engine. It was just a thing of beauty, you know. And I was smitten with it straight away. And when the kit came out, it was a no-brainer. It was going to be bought straight away. So let's just pop that back on there. Get that back in. There we go. So just squeeze it all back into its right place. It's never as easy as it looks. Get some slots in the back first, and then correctly. Squeeze it in a bit. There we go. And the only thing you have to watch out for on these kits, I must point out, is two things. One is that they can be a bit limited in the choice of decals. There's that. Yeah, the decals choice is a bit limited because they always have this non-tobacco advertising, you know. And the second thing is the tyres. They, if you leave them as I did, and this is, I'm not going to sort of rotate it, it looks very ugly, but if they sit on their tyres for too many years, which this has, this is exactly 30 years old, literally almost to the day. A very old kit now, model. Excuse me. These little screws that actually hold it together, so they fix in, and it all clamps down tightly. So don't see this and think it doesn't go together. But it's just that I haven't put the screws in. It looks perfect when it's all screwed together. But yeah, the tyres, it sits on the tyres, and the rubber sort of ages, and then they go flat. You get flat spots, just like with a real car, if you leave it in a barn, you know. So just be wary of that. This is why it's now in this position it's in, where it's suspended, so it doesn't flatten them anymore. But I could really do replacing those, and I could get replacements. Tell me how well you can buy them from them, you know. So that's the Ferrari. That's the Ferrari. So we're going to move that aside, and then we're going to come to the more recent one-ish. Actually 8 years old already, will you believe. And this has got a bit of a personal backstory for me, so I'll explain that in 1 second when we just have a little shuffle. I'll just pop it there. Put it on your arm, will it? There we go. Do we still want that? I think we'll have that on. Let's zoom in on this one then, the more recent kit. Now then, if any of you recognise this one or not. This one is, definitely need to rearrange that one. This is It's the Toyota GT86, also known as excuse me, known in the USA, and I think also Australia and New Zealand and other territories, known as the Scion FRS, which they've stopped production of. It's the same car as the Subaru BRZ or BRZ. It is a flat 4 engined rear drive with a limited slip differential, kind of affordable sports car, and it was aimed specifically at true sports car enthusiasts. So they want rear wheel drive, the engine at the front, drive at the back, limited slip differential, stop the wheels from spinning up on the inside. And this is what they came up with. And they came up with it in the UK. It was priced at about £25,000 in 2012. And they did a really good job. I have to say that I reached out and bought one myself. And I had it for 3 years, in fact. Now, I didn't do all that much travelling with it. I did go on holiday. Well, I didn't go on holiday. I went for a few nights away. I went to Wales and the Lake District, and I went touring around on some really good roads. But the thing that made me nervous about this car was that it's one of those cars that devalues very quickly, so I kept the miles down. But there's some interesting features that we've got on the model. Let's have a look. So this is the Tamiya 24 scale kit. Now, whether you'll see this or not, how well you'll see it, more to the point, is going to be interesting. Can you see, if I get some more light on here, let's have a close look. Look at the engine bay. We have got the Subaru Toyota logo on the top there, on the sort of plenum chamber. It sits very low because it's this flat 4 boxer engine. So that was the whole point. It gave a very low centre of gravity. And it's got the brace bar, strengthening the actual stiffness of the body shell. All very logical, sensible stuff here. If you look very, very closely, you might just notice that the top of the engine area, where just underneath that plenum chamber, there's some sort of greenish looking metal. It's not actually green metal. It is actually a corrosion inhibitant that was actually put on the car for its transit when it was shipped from the Far East. Because these are actually made in the factory, the Subaru factory. It wasn't actually made in the actual Toyota factory at all. So they're effectively 2 production lines, one for Subaru branded and one for Toyota branded. And it's Fuji Heavy Industries, Subaru's parent company. They're the ones that built it. But if you look very, very carefully, you can just see this tinge of green in that sort of centre area of the engine. And that is actually the rust inhibitor, which I actually modelled into the kit. Because, you know, I had the advantage of actually having the kit, of actually having the car, I should say. And I thought, well, no, we've got to make it realistic. And everybody moaned about this, saying, "Why has it got this green gunk? It's like it's kind of like a rubberized, gloopy underseal, a bit like wax oil." And it was all over these areas where they were worried that the sea air, well, they transported it all the way from the Far East. They often do this on some of the Japanese cars. They'll coat them in this stuff because they want to try and protect it from the salty sea air. So I replicated that. As you can see, it doesn't have opening doors, unfortunately. But it's got some very nice features on the kit. Let's have a closer look again. Look at these wheels, for example, the alloy wheels. They are really rather nice. It's got to be said. And they are really realistic to the actual genuine original wheels that I had on my car. My car was like this, it was red. In fact, I was going to put my own registration number on the car, but I decided it was sort of spoiling and look a bit naff, so I didn't in the end. But in every respect, it's like my car looked. They come in right-hand drive as standard, of course, because the Japanese, I think, usually have right-hand drive themselves. Then we've got this. You look carefully. I'll just give you some more light. Look at the Toyota logo and the twin exhausts with the reversing and the fog light at the bottom where the diffuser is. Very, 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 very impressive. The way that they rendered it, the actual accuracy is just bob on. Really excellent. right down to the Michelin tyres, which has got the right tread and everything else. Just absolutely fantastic, really. A super little model, and this is another one where I actually did spray it. I was very brave, got the spray can out, and you know, off we went. There we go. So there we have it. So that's the Subaru stroke Toyota, Subaru BRZ or Toyota GT86. They actually do both versions Tamiya, so I'm talking two kits there, but mine is the Toyota GT86 version, which is the one I had. And the bonnet does close. In fact, we might be able to do that for you now. Let's have a look. It hasn't been closed for many years. There we go. Hasn't been closed for many years, but there we are. Closed bonnet. And as you can see, it's quite a nice little thing. Maybe you didn't get the best paint finish on this. A little bit orange peely. Perhaps I should have polished it up a bit more. And but I'm very pleased with the result. It looks basically like, you know, like my old car did. So there we go. And the thing I have to stress about this model is that, again, with these Tamiya cars, the cars and motorbikes, they do so well, don't they? They're beautiful, beautiful. Spot on accuracy, you know, things like the little details like the wheels and the lights and the logo on the side. It's got the pistons punching out, which is the logo of the GT86. Dead on, you know, absolutely spot on. Very, very impressive little kit. Anyway, enough from me. I'm just showing you a bit of a history lesson about these cars as well, but talking about, you know, building them. I did a montage of photographs, which I'm pretty sure is on the channel if you look back. Toyota GT86 build. You can see the whole process of building it. Definitely worth a nosy. Have a look, and if I can't find that one, I'll perhaps reload it. But one of many kits you can get at this scale that are really nice from Tamiya. So strongly recommend you look into that. I mean, you know, one final thing that's a little bit different. Look at, I mentioned about the badge at the back, but look at the badge at the front. You know, that's like a little metal. It's like a self-adhesive badge, and it's like a lattice. It's very accurate. Just look at this, and bring you right in for this finally. Just the little details that they get so right. Back. Whoops. That Toyota badge there in the middle. Look at that. It's absolutely brilliant. It really is. So, very impressive stuff from Tamiya again. I'm not so sure how impressive it was from me. I'm not the greatest modeler, I've said it before, but I do enjoy it. I think that's the most important thing for any of us. Just don't worry about it being absolutely perfect. You know, I'm going to show a couple of models, a couple of aeroplanes I think that are definitely not perfect in probably my next video, and you will see that you know, big aeroplanes, they're not things you look at very closely because they are hung up, or doesn't matter. Just build them, yeah. Just build them, the ones that you really are passionate about. Because nobody's probably going to criticise them in the way that you do. You look and you see things and think, oh, I didn't do that right and I could have done better with this. People walk into my house and see these models and they're just like, because they don't see that, they just think, that's a nice looking GT86 or Ferrari or Porsche or whatever it is. They just see it as a skillful piece of craft work. They don't see that level of detail. And somebody said to me not long ago, said, don't beat yourself up about it, just don't zoom in so much. I mean, that's true of anything in life, isn't it? Anything you look at under a microscope doesn't look very pretty. Doesn't look very pretty, apart from snow crystals, you know. Anyway, there we go. That's it for today. Hope you found it interesting. Don't be put off, you know, these kits that need a very high finish. You can cheat your way out of it. You can either, you know, don't paint them at all. If the kit is good enough, make sure you choose a really nice kit with great finish, great plastic. You can get away with murder if that's the case. You'll be able to do a really nice job. Just focus on the detail stuff. What is it on these kits that catches people's eye? That's really what they're looking for. don't worry about trying to be, you know, the next Leonardo da Vinci of model makers, because I guarantee you, when we all get back to Scale Model World and life returns a bit more to normal, I look at one, you know, and I think, that's awesome. And then I see another one, I think, oh no, that's even more awesome. There is always somebody else who is better than you. Doesn't matter how good you are, somebody else will come along at some point. You know, Francois Verlinden, who did all the armour kits, beautiful models in the 70s. He was a genius, you know, no question. But you see people today that perhaps are even better. Whether they're actually better or their interpretation is different or the technology's moved on, things don't stay the same. So don't worry about it. Just enjoy modelling, get stuck in, and just, I think if you're passionate about the subject that you're modelling, I think it always comes out. You know, I see on the Flory forum, people, astonishing work. It's just mine. I think I'm never going to match that. I won't get close to it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's not, you know, it's not a competition. Does it look good in your cabinet? If the answer is yes, you have succeeded. Have a drink, slap on the back, well done. and that's got to be your philosophy for life, hasn't it, really? Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you are a subscriber, ding the notification bell and you'll get early warning of the next video. And in the meantime, till next time, which won't be long, thanks a lot. Bye for now. Look after yourselves. Take care. Bye bye.